Hi there and good morning. I am in a hot place, as you can possibly see outside. It's roasting. And something I have recently been pondering is this: how silently, without realizing it, I've become the curator of many engines. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 engines in here alone, and they all require maintenance. Some are running, that's running, this one's running, it's a Honda. These are good, by the way. If you ever need something with an engine, make sure it's a Honda engine. That one's not too bad. That's a copy of a Honda engine, but it does okay. They did a good copy of it. However, I'm going to have to grab some of this out. By the way, that's a Tecumseh engine. This is one greasy boy. It looks like it's been crying out all of its oily tears. That would help in the UK, where this is originally from, with rust. However, I don't want any oily tears here. So my objective is to see if I can get this running today so that I can either use it or flog it or get rid of it. But I need to determine whether or not this engine still works. I recall it had some issues before. So if you're not aware, you have a lot of knobs on these things. I don't even know what this one does. Something drive, it says. There's a little handle. But this is the one you're really keen on. That is the starting position. Push that right down there. But before we prime the bulb, I'm just going to check if there's any fuel in here. It is a 4-stroke, fortunately. Dry as a bone. And we'll check if there's any oil. Yeah. Not really. But before we add any, we might as well see if we can get it started. Probably enough just to get it going. And I'm just inspecting here because sometimes these little bulbs do crack, but it seems to be intact. I'll put a bit of fuel in it. Now, just going to add a little bit because I don't want to waste it on this machine if it doesn't work, because they're actually quite hard to empty. It does look like potentially there's some cracks in this fuel tank. Maybe it's just the paint. Anyway, that should be enough to get going. So I'm just going to give it a few pumps. It says 5 on the instructions up there, but I'm not even sure I can hear it drawing fuel. The problem is with this, you see it comes out of this tank here, which is sometimes a bit leaky. In fact, it's wet there on my finger, so it is leaking, to this fuel filter and then into the bottom of the carburetor. So whether or not it's breathing it in, who knows. Okay, so the moment of truth. So we make sure this is in the go position. This lever, I think, is the blades basically. So you think, if I recall, you push this forward and then this pulls back to lock them. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But all we need to do is grab this and give it a tug, which could be quite difficult one-handed, but let's see. Hey, there we go. I'm not going to lie, I'm actually quite taken aback by the fact that that ran, considering I bought this other big one a few years ago to replace it. The new one drives itself along. That's the biggest difference compared to the old one, because in certain countries, especially like US, you need something called a brush cutter, and it has to drive itself on those big pram-like wheels, whereas that Hayter from the UK that's the most savage you need in the UK, which is not very savage at all. Right, now the thing we need to do is replace some strimmer line on its blade. So I do have a selection, and I'll show you some of the ones I've got. So this part of the machine, I believe, is called the power head, and it's connected to a gearbox via a belt, because of course you need to reduce shock on that engine. And you can see it's full of wire and stuff in here because this has had a lot of abuse and caught a lot of bits of barbed wire and whatnot. And down here I have 2 different types of strimmer line. So it's effectively the same sort of line you have for your strimmer, but it's 4mm rather than the little one. And this is a round bit of, I don't know what it is, UPVC or whatever it's made of, but you can see it's just normal round shaped one. And this one, it's harder to show you, but you have to take my word for it, is a square profile like it shows on the box. And this one's apparently got aluminium dust in it. And there's all sorts of lines you can get. You can get a 4mm line where it's actually, the core is 2mm of this with an outer, 2mm of clear, which is supposed to be silent. But this is the trick with it anyway. You cut a bunch of lengths to the right length, and if you see the box here, depending on your cutter, this one's quite conveniently almost the diameter of the box. And the reason it's a bit tricky is you kind of got to know, again, doing this one hand could be tricky, you kind of got to know the length you're going to need beforehand. So I'm just going to sort of show you. So you push it through, or you attempt to push it through, and then you wind it back on itself like that. Okay, I've got to put the camera down. Right, so you can see now that's the knot. So you've gone through the first loop here, around the front, and then around the back and outside this. And the bit that's tricky is because you want to end up with these two strands to be the same length, which I haven't really got here. However, this is cut for the other machine, which has got a bigger deck, but you can see why, because when it spins round, it might hit this and cut itself, which is great, but you can see you're wasting that much just by getting it wrong. So possibly this one might be a better length, but let's put that one on as well. Let's see if I was right or wrong. Yes, that one's way better. Not quite long enough, but that'll do the job compared to that one. So I'm just going to snip that off here and chuck some oil in it. We'll see if we can get a cut out of this. Just a little drop in there. There's no point adding too much because it's just going to leak it out anyway. So this is probably the weakest sort of stuff you're going to have to cut through in an environment like this, which is just pretty much grass. You do get dense brush, but this should be child's play for something like this, and it's pretty much what you'd have in the UK anyway. I'm going to start it up and activate this lever here, which should spin the strimmer head, and we can literally just cut that back. Okay, it's going all right. Not really much to complain about, to be honest. I'm really surprised. Hacked through all that. Obviously could benefit from a rake. That's just loose stuff now. And despite hitting this metal thing and getting all entangled in it, it's not really done too much damage to these strimmer lines. I'm a bit worried though, of course, about microplastics and whatnot. So we might need to look into other versions of these, because I have seen where they've replaced these with chains on some, which does look like a potential toe cutting apparatus, so you have to be a bit careful about that. So yeah, two minds. I was going to really see if anybody wanted this machine, but it's working so well, I guess I'll put it back in the shed as the backup cutter. So I'm in two minds about this. I would quite like to drag some of these machines out to test them, but it's so hot out there that I don't fancy it. And actually my phone, which I'm recording on right now, is telling me that you can't record out there because it's too hot. So, avoiding the oil, let's see how this one works. So we have a slow speed and fast speed, which, to be honest with you, doesn't seem to want to move. Okay, so that's pretty bloody stiff. Let's leave it as is. And then we have another adjustment here. Crikey, what was all this? Is that a fuel tap? That feels like a fuel tap. That feels like a choke. In fact, there you go. That's the fuel, which I'm guessing that way is on. Choke that way is on. And assuming there's fuel in here, you can see this engine was retrofitted to this. It's obviously massive. It's supposed to be an 8 horsepower machine. This is a 15 brand new engine. but there may be some fuel in here if I can just get my finger in there. Yeah, absolutely nothing. So it's fueled up now, and you can see it's a little bit cleaner in here because I dropped a lot of petrol. So I'm going to give it a go. Just going to see if it turns over first. Now, by the way, this thing's got big chains on it, and it basically is a flail, and those chains exist in that slot. And the idea is you throw stuff in the top and it comes out the bottom all chipped, or you put your arm in here and get your fingers mangled off by the spinning blade. It actually has a blade in there for chipping. So I'm going to go and, yeah, let's get it started. Oh, there's an ignition. Tapping the carb. It's definitely putting up more of a fight than I'd have expected. So I'm going to empty the carb bowl just in case it's got a bit of water in there. Oh, there we go. This is a McAllister, by the way, which is a B&Q brand back in the UK. And it's done alright, to be honest with you. That's a cheap set. It's quite a lot cheaper than the equivalent Ryobi. Right, so fuel tap. Let's turn that to off. And just open up this drain. Oh, hello. I don't know if you saw that. It was definitely not a very nice looking colour. Let's let out all that varnish. There we go, now it's coming through clear. Ooh, the old cut detector's working. Cut detector fluid. And nice opportunity to do a bit of a clean up. Just like a mechanic when you used to take your car to a garage. Rub it over with an oily rag. Customer will be nice and happy with that. Look at that, sparkling. I know you can't smell it, but that literally did smell like varnish, like you just have on your woodwork. Okay, let's get this back in position. Just going to manually alter the air fuel mixture. Don't have any easy start, alas. Let's see what this does, if anything. Whoa! Definitely a knackered carb, so I'm going to have to open this out and clean it. That's looking a little bit grim, so I'm going to give it some WD-40 and a little bit of tissue and just get this sparkling. There's a lot of grit in there, and chances are it's jammed up the old jet. And I think this is just basically when they call it varnishing, when the petrol turns into varnish, because it really did smell exactly like wood varnish. As a solvent, the WD-40 is barely touching it, so might need some mechanical scrubbing action there to really do a proper job. By rubbing my nail around it, I've got rid of most of the surface grip. You can see it is going. You just want to make sure there's nothing left to sort of break off in there. I mean, I'll probably give it another go before I fit it. And I'd just like to really shout out to Tim, because Tim, the old shopsmith, you can see, is very much in use in my workshop here, and producing a shield for the kiddies. But yeah, thanks for all the support over the years, honestly. But yeah, I do honestly feel a bit embarrassed sometimes to people who've supported the channel, because I'm often not in a position to return the favour. So if you do support the channel, thank you so much. And honestly, if you need anything, just ask me in Discord. There's always a chance I might be able to help you with something in my own small way. Let's pop this back on. By the way, this float looks okay for now. I'm just going to put it in and see if it works, just in case. Otherwise, it will all have to come off, which I want to avoid. Right. I feel like we're getting there. I actually, before I tightened up the bolt on the bottom, I did open up the fuel tap to see that clear fuel was coming through. So clean fuel was definitely getting through at that point. Whoa. Do you ever regret starting a job? I mean, at any point now, I could just stop, really. Nobody's making me do this. There's nothing outside that needs to be processed using this machine right now. But I feel we've started. Like Mastermind, we've started, so we must finish. I've turned off the fuel here, just so we could get this all off. Ooh. Oh look, I didn't know that. There's a thing from the exhaust that blows in here to put a bit of positive pressure. But we've been pouring fuel in here, so that's basically how we've been getting it going. So I think the main function of the carb is still blocked. So that's our choke. So the choke's looking good. The fuel tap we know works. So all you've got really in there is the jet, and there is a demand valve, which is used there. You can just about see that little butterfly in there. But we can actually now pop this whole carb off gingerly. Try not to damage the gaskets. If we actually just loosen some of these fuel lines, might be just swing it rather than just pull it off totally, because I don't really want to disconnect all the fuel lines properly. Feels like another one of those two-handed jobs. And yoicks, out it comes. Look at that. I'd say it's only had a couple hours of work on it. I'm going to take the bowl off, and really I just want to start getting to the jet, because that's the one bit I think is going to be the problem area. Great. Petrol everywhere. So there's the bowl, which is still actually looks pretty reasonable after our cleaning. And you can see there is a slight discoloration on the float, so that's still that sense that there is a residue in here. If we just take this little pin out here, I'm going to pop that in there. You should be able to remove the float. You can see that's the seat, I guess that's the pin, and the seat is in there. And this is the jet, which I'm going to put my lips on and blow. Not nice. I didn't detect any air passing my lips. Admittedly, that could be because the jet is such a tiny little thing. So I'm just unscrewing it now so we can see what it looks like with our naked eyes. And there she is. You can see absolutely teeny tiny hole. So the chances of a bit of varnish forming in that are quite high. I'm not sure I've got something thin enough to poke it through. I'll have to get the specs for this though first, because it could be something like 0.1, 0.2 of a mil, and if we poke it through with something a bit bigger like a pin, we'll damage it. So what you're seeing here is it jammed into a Schrader valve pump. You can see it right there by my thumb, and I'm going to force some air into it, and that way hopefully a bit of pressure, oh there you go, you can hear it hissing, might be enough to clear it through. Done the trick. Look at that. It may be hubris, but I'm going to install everything back the way it was before even trying it. I've got that confidence that it's going to work, but I am going to put the fuel on while I'm doing it to let some fuel trickle in there. I am sweating buckets here. It was 45 degrees the other day. 45. It's not sensible. I'm blaming that on the old CFCs. Okay, let's get that on there. Right, how does that go? The final piece of the puzzle before we get to pull that old starter cable again. On there. Right, ignition on, choke on, fuel on, speed not too slow, not too fast, somewhere in the middle. Let's go for it. Oh, that sounded promising. Well, I think that was a success. I think it's just run out of fuel, which is what we want, to be honest. Preferably not having fuel in the bowl might stop it locking up again. I think now it's time for the generator. I've already gone this far, I might as well test the last thing out here. I know that these items are working. Two-strokers actually are a lot easier sometimes. You know, once they're working, they seem to be okay. Yes, I am in an enclosed environment. Don't do this at home because you will poison yourself. So this is a bag of plugs and adapters. Always useful. I'll leave that in there. And let's see what we have here. DC, whatever that is. Look at that thing. Some switches, some trench-shaler. I think these are fuses for these Shuko sockets. Engine switch on, so we definitely want it on. And turn it round. Okay, check engine oil level. Hopefully it's got some. So this is that, basically the same setup. So there's the demand, which is the same as this one here. And there's the choke, which I don't know if that's on or off. Doesn't really help you here, and there's no indication at all, so I'm going to push it all the way to the right. Check gas. There was some petrol in it because I'd ripped a bit in when I was doing that. Unplug. Fuel on. Where's the fuel? Fuel on. That's probably on. Switch on engine, which we have, and pull the start or turn the starter. Well, this doesn't have an electric start, so I guess I'm going to have to go do this manually. It absolutely stinks in here, as you can imagine. Check the fuel. Yeah. Definitely some in there. Maybe I'll dilute it down. Dilute that varnish. Obviously, be careful if you're handling petrol, especially in a place like this. I wouldn't say handle it in an enclosed environment at all. One spark and woof, it'll all be up. Okay, let's do it again. Right, well, very pleased with that. Obviously there's a bit of an atmosphere in here. I love a party with a happy atmosphere. So, I think that's the engines. There is one last engine I need to sort out, and that's this guy. Oh! So let's check if he's got any fuel. So you saw this in a previous video. This is my Tecumseh 12 horse pairs. And it's a pretty rough engine, to be honest with you. It's not great, but it does the job. And on this lawn tractor, it's literally been the best 300 quid or whatever it is I've ever bought, to be honest. They do so much work, especially the trailer on it. So I've got a little bit of juice still in there that hasn't evaporated. It tends to be quite good on the old batteries in this kind of climate. So there's always a good chance that the batteries will hold some sort of charge. So I'm just going to... So this has got a trick, by the way. So you can see down here there's the choke. And this engine needs you to tickle the choke, but not have any choke. So it's generally a two-handed operation, but you'll see if I get down there quick enough and shove the choke back in once it starts, all the governor and all that lot, it will go well. I really should dismantle this engine and give all the linkages a clean and stuff, but I'm just too lazy. Oh, there you go. Yeah, some fettling needed, clearly, probably a bit of 3-in-1, but it started, and that's basically all you can hope for. There, all that's left, of course, is for me to do bloody sod all, because look at the state of it. Look at the state of that hair. It's too hot for anybody's bloody good, honestly. Let's have a little look-see before I go. There's a pretty good bunch there. It's all worth it, isn't it? I say that, how much is that going to cost you? 10p down Sainsbury's? Yeah. What do we reckon, eh? I think that one is probably going to be okay. Let's have it. Let's have ya.